Hey everyone, it's John Pocoroba with RainKingInsights.com. If you went to Blue Sky this year, you heard some of the key insights from our model book of biggest winners from 2020 to 2021 bull market. I presented these with Mike Kincaid, a veteran investor of the Boston IBD meetup. Now, if you didn't attend Blue Sky this year, you missed out. Well, you didn't really miss out. Just listen up to this video and we'll share what we're offering. I also wanted to give a special contribution to Aaron Blank, Victor Rosen, and Yulia Costello for the work they did on the model book winners. All right, this is our latest piece of research. We did a bull market research study on the 2020 COVID bull market, and we're just getting ready to release the entire study. Now, this table of contents is lengthy and meaty. We go over everything about the context of the bull market. We get into CAN-SLIM criteria to see how these winners held up. We took a deep dive into the green flag stocks, which I'll cover in a moment. And we really studied hard the price action in the first 8 weeks to see how we could hold these stocks for big, big gains. We came up with some key signposts. And also very interesting, we've done multiple model books. We compared our model book here with all the historical model books that we've done, and lots of chart annotations. So there's a lot of material in this particular research book. There's so much material that we couldn't cover even a quarter of it in Blue Sky. But it's a 200-page document. There's 30 graphic summaries, and there's 85 annotated charts that I personally have annotated, daily and weekly charts of all the big winners. So we're going to offer a 3-webinar series that you can get all of the insights. You can see some of the topics in live webinar 1, 2, and 3. We go into great detail of all the research that we did over the last 2 years, but I'll talk about this at the end. So the model book starts with just the context. The COVID bull market, which happened here, was one of the most unprecedented events ever. But the follow-through day on April 6, 2020 was something we all should have paid attention to. That's when the big leaders came out in the first 13 weeks after the follow-through day. And here they are. Here's all the big winners in the study. You can see them all. The ones in the green are in the first 4 weeks after the follow-through day. And then the 9 weeks later, we had additional big winners. And look at the gains, incredible gains. So it's always important to study the past winners. Now, we did an extensive deep dive in what we call the green flag stocks. Now, if you're an IBD CAN-SLIMmer and you use Market Surge, you're familiar with stocks that go up 20% or more in 3 weeks or less, potentially could be very, very special stocks. So we did a deep dive. We really wanted to scrub what made these stocks special and how did we actually differentiate between average green stocks and real super performers. Now, we did this all because we were looking into the 8-week hold rule. Bill O'Neill's 8-week hold rule was designed around green flag stocks. Bill's rule said that if a stock goes up 20% or more in 3 weeks or less, it could be special. And he talked about how you would handle it the first 8 weeks. Now, if you don't know what that rule is, go to RainKingInsights.com and sign up to be a free member, and you will get access to all of my GMU extra videos. And I did a 10-minute video just about the 8-week hold rule. So when we talk about green flag stocks, the first thing that we did in this study is we really parsed out what we call true green flag stocks. These are stocks that moved up 20% and they stayed in closing. They closed their price in the green zone. We also came up with soft green stocks. These are stocks that went into the 20% level on an intraday basis, but they did not close in the green zone. So those are different categories. And we certainly classified all the big winners that didn't happen to be green flag stocks at all. You can see we had 78% of the biggest winners were green flag stocks. And you can see the other percentages. Soft green flags were 13%. And then we had 31% that were non-green flag stocks. Now, we went deeper. We really wanted to know when we hit the green flag status, how do you hold a stock and how do you differentiate if it's really going to be a super performer? And so we looked at gains to the 8-week mark and we learned a lot. We learned a lot about certain stocks gained 10% additionally after green flag status, while others petered out and they were actually negative after green flag status. So we wanted to understand what differentiated the two. Now, we got into some green flag insights. We shared a little bit of this at Blue Sky, but here's the overview. We looked at what we call the initial run of a stock. That's when the stock has its breakout and it has its first real push higher before it has a minimum 12% pullback or more. That's really important. This is actually part of what Bill O'Neill was talking about. If you get out of the gate really, really strong, there's going to be probably a pullback in those first 8 weeks, which is 12% or more. And Bill's rule was designed to try and keep you in the stock. So we looked at this very, very closely in looking at all the data and all the research to come up with key insights. Now, we also looked at simply the price action in the first 8 weeks, and we created 3 categories. Stocks such as this green line that broke out, and they actually digested their gains before moving up to the 8-week mark. Other stocks were much harder to handle. You can see the red line. There were stocks that actually came back, they broke out, and they shook out below the pivot, making them very difficult to handle. And the blue line is kind of in between. Stocks that broke out, they kind of drifted slowly back to the pivot area, and then they marched higher. All 3 categories had really big gains, but obviously some are easier to hold than others. We looked at moving averages. We looked at all kinds of combinations of the 10, the 20, the 50-day moving average, and we looked at green flag status, and all with this research trying to find out how do we hold the big winners and how do we distinguish what could be a really powerful big winning stock. So one of the key things that we looked at was just how do green flag stocks perform versus non-green flag stocks getting to the 8-week mark. Well, it was overwhelming. 80% chance of an additional 10% gain by the time you get from green flag status all the way out to week 8. So that's a clue that maybe the stock really is going to be a big winner. You can see that other stocks had not close to that in terms of being additional gains to 8 weeks. Now, I mentioned we looked at true green flag stocks closing in the green zone and soft green flags. These are intraday highs in the green zone. And how did they perform? Well, look at the true green flag stocks. They had 45% initial run, superpower coming out of the gate, and they eventually had a 53% gain by the time they reached the 8-week mark, and they were moving on to the peak. They got to 304% gains. Now, if we look at the soft green flag stocks, this is much softer, so to speak. You can see only a 22% initial run before we had our first 12% minimum pullback. And you can see the gains at 8 weeks is good, but it's not nearly as good as the true green flag stocks, especially ones that had combinations of other critical factors. Still good gains, but the green flags that with the cap that were key had other characteristics to give bigger gains. Became an important signpost that we built upon in the study. Now, I won't get into all these bar charts. We will do this in the webinar series, but we looked at these combinations of green flags with digestions, holding moving averages, and what were these gains to 8 weeks. We'll explain all this data in great detail at the webinar series. And as I mentioned, we have 5 other model books that we looked at to compare this data to see how this particular bull market compared to others. Now, one of our big goals was to say, how do we identify the easiest to trade stocks? There were 38 stocks that met certain criteria, and we talked about these at Blue Sky. The criteria really were having their first pullback after they gained 20%. They also held the 20 EMA for the first 8 weeks, which became a key signpost, and they digested their gains. instead of actually having harsh shakeouts and revisits to the pivots, which creates a lot of pressure on you. And so, the template we learned on was that combination was very, very strong. And you can see those stocks, the 38 of them, had 52% median gains in only 3.4 weeks. And then their first pullback of 12% or more was a median pullback of 16% over 6 days. It's important to understand what to expect for the first pullback. And we have lots of data about sharing with you what to look for. So we reviewed a Blue Sky. We reviewed an example of Twilio, easy to trade stock. You can see how come this stock is so easy to trade. It gaps up, it digests its gains, it holds moving averages, and then by the time you get to 8 weeks, it's up 46% of additional gains after a 40% gap up. That's very different action than a stock that's much, much harder to trade, like Magnolia Oil and Gas. You can see this has red action, which is meaning it did not hold the 50, it had shakeouts, and you can see how choppy this stock is. Very difficult to hold, even though it ultimately became a winner, very difficult. So we probably would avoid a stock like this if we know what to look for. So that's what we've done. Throughout the study, our goal was to create the signpost template in the first 8 weeks. And we looked at the breakout, the green flag status, moving averages, price action. Then we looked at the first pullback, the additional gains at the 8-week mark, and where did we stand after 8 weeks? Should we hold the stock for further gains, or should we take our stock and sell it for profit and move to the next stock? This template is what all the data tells us in this research study. It's valuable information. It's going to help you understand if you really have your hands on a model book stock that could go up 2, 3, 4, 500%. That's what we're going to share in the study. So as I mentioned, we're going to offer this as a package. If you buy this package, you're going to get the entire research study, all 200 pages, which is 300 graphic summaries and tables of all the data that we gathered. You're going to get the signpost template, which is going to show you all those key markers, and you're going to get basically a true model book of 85 annotated charts that I personally annotated, all of the daily and weekly charts. Incredible value to having this to study it for other precedents in bull markets. So the first webinar is going to be really focused on green flags, the first 3 weeks coming out of the gate, and this idea of easier versus harder stocks to trade and how to identify them. The second webinar is going to really look at weeks 3 through 8. We'll look at those initial moves, the pullback. We've done something with Mike that's called an AI discriminant analysis. And then we're going to get into comparing this to 5 other model books historically to see the concept of which numbers are the same and which numbers varied. And we'll look at plenty of charts. The third webinar is all about the signposts and how to manage the trade. We'll look what can you learn gradually in real time as the stock is progressing to determine if you should buy, sell, or hold. We'll look at some of the growth stocks, the cyclical stocks, and that signpost leader. We'll even look at today's market, at today's big leaders and how they fit the signpost template to help you understand what today might be a really big leader. Now, those of you that know me know when I put out a research study, there's 2 things. The data is going to be very, very solid, and the graphics and the professionalness of the report will be top notch. I've done multiple model book winners, 2012 market, the 2016 winners. I've done high tight flags, 55 greatest winners, etc. You want to see some sample pages from these, just go to RainKingInsights.com and you go to this page, go to my home page and go to reports. When you pick up reports, it's going to bring you to a tab showing you all the reports I've done, and you can click on sample pages and tell you a little bit more about what those particular research studies examined. So, as I mentioned, everything in the package, if you want the full package, you want to get the research study, plus you'll be invited to all 3 webinars, which will be live, so you can ask all of your questions, and we can drill down to deeper understanding. This is easily an $800 package. We're offering it for $399 for the whole package, the report plus the webinar series. And if you're interested, just send me an email right now to rainKingBullBear@gmail.com. We're going to add your name to the list that you're interested in buying this package. We really hope you'll take advantage of this. If you're a CanSlim investor and you're looking at green flag stocks and model book stocks, you're not going to find this type of research with IBD. No one's done the differentiation of green flag stocks like we have, and we think it'll be incredibly valuable to help you become a better CanSlim investor to take advantage of growth stocks. So the way we're going to do this, we'll put your name on the list that you're interested in buying the package. We'll send you an email and we'll make the research study available, probably around December 16th. You'll be able to download the entire PDF, and we want you to look it over. We want you to look at the 200 pages, come up with your questions, put your note tabs in there. So when we get to the webinars, you'll be prepared. And again, we're looking at mid-January for some tentative dates. 3 weeks in a row, we'll do the webinar series. Now, if you're new to CanSlim, Mike's put together a free 30-minute crash course video in basic CanSlim. So even if you've only been trading CanSlim for a year or two, you can get this crash course video for free if you buy the package. Frankly, there were thousands of hours put into developing this research, and we're practically giving it away. So take advantage of this. We hope you'll show us your interest by sending us an email at rainKingBullBear@gmail.com.